Get ready to be inspired by Mark Steele. Mark Steele is a two-time TEDx speaker, acclaimed sales and leadership consultant, and the best-selling author of Invincible Success, Sell with Confidence, Lead with Purpose, and Speak with Impact. With a stellar 15-year tenure at Microsoft, Mark's laser focus on enhancing employee productivity set him apart as a high-impact sales leader. His impressive track record includes spearheading over 1.5 billion, billion with a B, in sales and collaborating with renowned brands such as McDonald's, Allstate, Caterpillar, Abbott, and more. Currently, he serves as the president of Windy City Professional Speakers, one of those other clubs I mentioned, and is a seasoned Toastmaster since 2017. Mark brings a wealth of experience to the stage. Tonight, be prepared to unlock the full potential of Microsoft PowerPoint as Mark shares his insider tips. And by the way, if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them into the chat. And we're going to have a section at the end where Mark will respond to those questions, not only of the things that he's talked about, but perhaps things in general about PowerPoint. So tonight we're going to discover how to leverage the hidden tools within PowerPoint to breathe life into your presentations, save time, reduce frustration, and ultimately amplify your impact on the audience. Mark is not just a speaker, he's a guide to unleashing your full potential in the world of presentations. Please help me welcome Mark Steele.
Thank you, Stan. And thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight or this afternoon or this morning, wherever you happen to be, as Stan said, around the world. So we've all seen it. And if we're being completely honest, chances are most of us may have done it. But certainly we've all seen presenters, whether they're in person or virtual like we are right now, that are just a talking head showing some PowerPoint slides and the slides are too numerous, they're too wordy, or just too boring. So pretty painful, right? Kind of sitting through some of those presentations. Well, now, actually, as virtual presenters, it's actually more important that your slides complement your message, not detract from it. And that's because as virtual presenters, you're actually up against quite a bit. The second you start sharing slides, your video window, the window that you see me in right now, it shrinks down to like 25% of the screen, meaning that 75% of the screen are now your slides. So if your slides are too busy or not in line with what you're saying, or they're really dull, then you really start to run the risk of audiences starting to grab their phone or look at other things, email or something that they may have access to there on their computer. So we don't want that to happen tonight. We don't want it to happen to you ever. So tonight, it's all about helping you unlock the hidden tools in PowerPoint so that you can make your content easier to create, and just as Stan said, to have more impact with your audience when you deliver that content. So if that sounds like something you'd like, put it in the chat window. So on a scale from yes to hell yes, just put it in the chat window if having some tips on PowerPoint would help make your life a little bit easier. So I see some yes. Thank you for being appropriate, Rodney. So, yep, so good. That's great. So as Stan said, I worked in sales at Microsoft for 15 years. I delivered new sales presentations literally every day of my career, which means that I have delivered, I did some math, and I've literally delivered thousands of presentations. And even worse, I have sat through probably 10,000 presentations in training and watching other presenters. So I have spent more time with PowerPoint than I've spent with my children. And I have seen the good, the bad, and the so ugly it should be criminalized. So I'm going to help you discover some things that you may not be aware of inside of PowerPoint to help you have more impact. So very quickly, let's dive into it. I am going to start to share my screen, and away we go. So as that comes up, I will move some notes off to the side, and we're all going to be looking at PowerPoint. So the agenda, we've got, I could show you, I've spent a lot of time in PowerPoint, so there's probably many more things that I could show you than we have time for this evening. And so where are we going to start? We're going to talk about tools to help you, excuse me, I was messing with timings earlier. And so now my slides are auto advancing. So there's a tip for you there. So we'll talk about using timings later on, but we're going to focus on 3 areas: helping you create content, helping you prepare that content to be delivered, and then actually helping you deliver that content to your audience. So
Mark, do you
under first the subheading, feel free to take notes as we go along. I will be moving quickly through some of this. So feel free to drop something in chat if you need a touch more explanation. Plus, we'll have a little time for questions at the end. But we all have heard the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Not all of us are professional graphic designers. We don't know how to, nor frankly do we want to spend tons and tons of time trying to make the design of our slides look great. Well, fortunately, there are some tools inside of PowerPoint that will help us do that without us having to know graphic design whatsoever. So let's talk about, first and foremost, working with images and leveraging a new feature in Microsoft 365 specifically. So the newest version of PowerPoint called Designer. So if you have PowerPoint, you have the latest version. If you look on your Home tab, if you follow my cursor right up to the top, the Home tab, and then across to the far right, you'll see Designer. And that is really artificial intelligence, or AI, that's helping you do design work on your slides if you want it to. So let me get an example of that. So I want to create a really dynamic looking title slide. So first thing I'm going to do is go under Insert. I'm going to go under Pictures, and I am going to look at some of the stock images that come with Microsoft Office now. And since we're talking about design, I'm just going to type in the word design, and you'll see that it auto-populates it, it renders, it finds some things, and I could pick any one of these. So I'm going to drop that on, and the moment I do that, Designer over here on the right-hand side kind of kicks in and, makes suggestions as to how I may want to design that particular slide. And I can click around to any one of these, and you'll see it update in real time of a design that I could apply to that particular slide. Now, I love big, bold pictures with not a whole lot of text because I really want the focus to be on the words that I'm saying. And so I might gravitate towards this. But sometimes you might have a little bit more content, and having too big of a picture on the screen might be a little too much for that particular slide. So you can go through and you'll see different design elements that are being applied. You'll see that's got a bit of the image faded into the background. If I don't like any of these, down at the bottom here, I can say see more design ideas, and you'll see that it populates with even more versions of it. And I can pick and choose, kind of bounce around a little bit, and ultimately I might decide to settle on this particular slide. The same thing applies to content that I may already have. So I'm jumping to this next slide. And again, so I've already got some content on the slide, but I do want to add a visual element. So I'm going to go back, look for stock images. Instead of design this time, I'm going to look for creative or something. We'll look for creative. And see if there's anything in, and all of these images are free. They're just included with PowerPoint. They're being updated all the time. So if there's something that jumps out at me, I'm just going to select that one and drop it in. And once again, Designer looks at the entire slide, including the bulleted list, and make suggestions, and I can pick and choose whichever one of these. And again, I could get more design ideas, or I could design it the way that I want. But I really like this particular layout. I love the way that the white fades into the white, so it doesn't look like just in picture sitting on the page there. Just know, not only does PowerPoint have those pictures included, but of course, anytime you could go to a free website like Pixabay or Pexels or something like that, or now more and more, there's actually free AI websites that you can create your own images. So this one is called playgroundai.com. And it's completely free. There are paid versions of it, but I use the free one. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that I was playing with it earlier. I just typed in a cute, cuddly kitten looking embarrassed, and it generated these images for me. And I can have it generate different images until it creates the one that I want. I can change my prompt a little bit if I want different color schemes or something like that. And ultimately, I can choose to download this image and include it in my presentation. So again, just free picture websites. But the more visual elements, especially when you're presenting, you don't want a whole bunch of text distracting from the message you're trying to convey. So I always tend to err on the side of more visual, less text onto any particular slide. So that is a quick and easy way. You'll see another way of doing it is if I were to go, you can actually use shapes and add pictures into shapes. And let me share with you how I went about doing this. So I've got, say, Toronto at night. I'm going to go under my insert, and under insert, I'm going to insert a shape, and I'll just draw a rectangle. And let me turn it on its side here. I may have to extend it out a little bit. So now I've got it kind of at the angle going off both the top and bottom edges of the slide. Another quick tip, I want to make more rectangles. So I could copy and paste, or inside PowerPoint, just hold your control key, or if you're on a Mac, it's the command key, but hold the control key as you drag that particular element somewhere else. So I'm holding control, I'm dragging it, and then with control still held, I release my mouse. And it now just made a copy of that, of which, of course, I can reshape, I could make bigger, littler, whatever I want to do. And then last but not least, I'm going to control drag again and get that. once I'm going to use Control one more time, select each of the elements, and right up in my window here, I'm going to group these together. So these are now considered one object inside of PowerPoint, of which I can then right-click on the object, I can format the shape, and fill it in with a picture. And there's a picture of Toronto now only fitting inside those three shapes. So again, this is just another dynamic way of creating visual elements instead of just plain text or bulleted lists on your slides, or just slapping a picture on your slide. The more you can make it interesting and something that people don't see every time they see a presenter. Another thing that I love to do is you'll see that I've created a graphic element here on the slide, and I'm going to one more time. I want to create a big arrow pointing at the center of that graphic. So one more time, I'm going to go to my stock images. I'm going to type in arrow, find an arrow that I like, which is, let's go with this one, but it slaps it in there. I don't want all those extra arrows. It's taking up too much. So now that I've selected the picture, you'll see right up at the top, it highlights picture format. And the very first tool available to me is to remove the background. I can click on that, and again, AI kind of steps in and says, what's the background of this picture and what's the foreground? And it got it exactly right. It got exactly what I wanted. But if I wanted some of these other arrows, I can use these tools up here to say, I also want this arrow or that arrow or whatever it may be. So now I like what it's done. I'm going to go ahead and keep the changes. And now I have just the arrow. One more time, I'm going to control, click, drag. I'm going to duplicate that and kind of create this cool shadowy effect here that just, again, gives it sort of a different visual element that you don't see every single time somebody's doing a presentation. The quick and easy. So Stan, thanks for letting me know this dang camera is out of focus. I'm going to shut off video and come right back, and that usually fixes it. It's got an autofocus problem that I have to get it fixed. So there, and then last but not least, another sort of dynamic, interactive. There's lots of free video websites, and in fact, more and more, there are AI websites that will create a video for you. But I am going to go to one of those free websites that I was talking about. This one is pixabay.com. And they have free videos that you can include in your presentations. You just can't post them on YouTube, but you can put them in a presentation. And of course, you can do a search on a particular video. Well, I've already downloaded one that I want. So I'm going to insert once again, and over here towards the right, insert video. And it will, I'll just say this device of which I've got my video. It expands to full screen. I could actually recolor this. Like if I was using a blue theme, you'll see designer kicks in also, makes some suggestions over here. But I could recolor it. If I'm using a blue theme, maybe I want to give it a different, because this is just going to be background. I just want this going while I'm talking. Maybe I'm telling a story about overcoming challenges. And so I just want a slow moving video to just highlight, but not distract from what I'm doing. So I would select this video, I would drop it in. You'll see as I have the video selected, I can choose that it automatically starts when I go to this slide. It's since it's a free video, it's only about 25 seconds long. I'll choose loop until it's stopped. And then as I'm speaking, as I'm describing overcoming this challenge, this video is slowly moving in the background. And so again, that's another way to add some visual pop to your presentations. So not everything is pictures. You do have to occasionally put some text on a slide. But again, we've all seen something like this. We've seen a title with a bulleted list, somebody just standing there going from item to item to item. PowerPoint helps make this more visually appealing fairly quickly as well. I'm just going to grab the text box that this bulleted list is inside. And you'll see right on my home tab, right about in the center, I've got convert to smart art. And smart art is a graphical element based on a bulleted list. You'll see as I hover over it, I get a preview of what that element would look like. So I can pick and choose, and this isn't all of them. This is kind of a category or of different, like this is a continuous list. You'll see as you hover over it, this one is called a chevron list. This one is a vertical bulleted list. So, but there are many more to choose from. I'm going to choose the vertical bulleted list. And then I could add additional elements, more bullets here. I'm very creative tonight. And it automatically changes the graphic to make room. And if I were to add another more info, you'll see that it adds a new graphical element and fits that in as well. So again, just adding, making it really easy for you. You can change the color scheme. You'll see it gives you all sorts of design colors that you can quickly pick and choose from. You can pick and choose each individual element and change the color if you want to, change the text color. Very quick and easy to do that. Another thing that I like to do is when presenting, I am going to, I want to remove, because I use timings. I don't want to use timings because I turned on timings earlier. So when presenting, let me go full screen and present this. We want the user or the listener focused on us. So too often as presenters, we'll just put all of the content on the slide at the same, all at one time. Well, I really believe in using animations and builds. So I actually purposely put more content on this slide than I normally would, but I'm going to use builds so that as I talk about the past, we can just be focused on the past. With one click, we're now talking on where we're at in this organization in 2024. But where we really want to be focused on is the future. And that reminds me of an inspiring quote by Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, who said, "You can't allow tradition to get in the way of innovation." One more click. I purposely, by changing the animation to recolor the first line of text so that it fades into the background, I now want people to focus on the second line of the text. So I really encourage you to use the tools available to you to be able to kind of drop content in at strategic times, as opposed to just, if you've got a lot of information, don't just put it all on the slide at the same time. Now, how did I do that? So all of this content appears on the slide. But if I go under my animations tab right at the top, you'll see right about 3/4 of the way over to the right, you'll see an animation pane. And this tells me all the different animation that I added to that particular slide. And I'm sure many of you have used animations. Some of you probably avoid them because you think they might be too complicated. Animations are actually have gotten so easy to use. It's very visual. I just select the particular element like this text box. And then right up here, you'll see a drop-down list of all the different types of animations that I could add in. And there are actually more if I were to click on more entrance effects or more visual effects. But these are the most common ones. Like I could have that fly in and I get a preview of what that's going to be, as opposed to just fade in. Then if I'm going to have it fly in, you'll see the effects. What direction do I want it to fly in? So don't be afraid to use animation. Use the animation painter, and this is actually a visual representation of exactly what order all of that animations are going to go in. You'll see each one over here each one with a mouse is going to require a click from me. Each one without a mouse is automatically going to go after the one before it goes. And so it's very easy to use these elements if you haven't checked out animations for quite some time. Now, one last thing before we move on to prepare, to some tools to help you prepare, is transitioning from slide to slide. An awful lot of time, let me go back into presentation mode here. I've got a bunch of content. So I'm saying, what of our users are saying at this organization? Well, I've added some animations here. Some emphasis, so they start off big and then they kind of shrink so that I get people to look where I want them to look on the screen. It's just an animation build. There's nothing fancy going there. But what if I then say, well, we got all of this feedback, but it really falls into 3 general categories. With one more click, you'll see that the elements actually slide across the page and fall into buckets or categories. And how I achieve that, and something that I encourage you to look into, is if you look under transitions, play with this morph transition. The morph transition, again, uses some artificial intelligence, but it compares the 2 slides, the previous slide and the next slide, and it says, what is different and what is the same in these 2 slides, and how would I move the elements to successfully go from one slide to the next? So all I did was prepare the 2 slides separately and then use the morph transition to have it appear as if it was sliding across it took just a matter of a few minutes to make that happen. So those are some of the things to do to create content, and I know we're getting close to time, and I want to be able to answer some questions. As far as being able to prepare the content, we all have great big presentations, or many people have big presentations, but you don't always have time to do every one of your slides. So instead of picking and choosing and trimming and creating about 8 different versions of your presentation, some with only 5 slides, some with 10 slides, some with 13 slides, then take a look at the slideshow tab, and instead of that, use the custom slideshow, where you can create a new custom slideshow. I'll just call it custom show 1, and pick and choose which of your many slides are going to be included in this particular version of the presentation. I say, okay. And now when it comes time a week from now for me to present a new version, then I just click custom slideshow and click show, and it's only going to show those 5 or 10 or whatever it is. So creating custom slideshows is a way for you to be able to dynamically change your presentation. Keep all of your slides together, but be able to dynamically pick and choose which slides and how you want to present them. And the last thing I'll show and then we'll take some questions, is for sure as virtual presenters, I encourage you to use presenter view. So you'll see also under slideshow, you'll see I have the option right up here to use presenter view. So once I go into presenter mode, many of you may be familiar with this, but you're looking at the presenter view. This is me. So I could have my notes. This is only to me. This isn't what you folks would normally be seeing. You're just seeing the slide that I'm showing. But I could have my notes here. I can resize these so that I can have bigger text. I can be using PowerPoint as a teleprompter if I wanted to be. I see the slide that's coming up. I can jump from slide to slide if I wanted to. Somebody asked me a question, I'd say, well, I was just about to talk about that. And I magically jumped to a slide that's actually 10 slides later, and the audience didn't know that. Or know that it wasn't actually the very next slide. So those are some of the ways that you can create, you can prepare yourself, and you can present using some of the hidden features inside of PowerPoint. And I know that there are some questions, so I will stop PowerPoint here and take some questions that have come in via text. Also, if folks want to unmute. And I see the red flag, but so when you, I see Linda, you asked, when preparing a lecture, how much time do you create slides? It somewhat depends, of course. I spend more time than the average user might, because I really sort of those visual elements are super important to me. I'm not calling out anybody else. It's just in my head that the visual elements are really important. But I would safely say I spend 3-4 times as much preparing the slides as certainly as I do presenting it, but it's as important to me as the content itself. Not everybody is going to treat it that way, but that's how I treat it. So. Another question. Yes, James. Yep, you can, just like video, you can add background music that could run through the entire presentation or just particular slides, or actually even a click if you wanted a sound effect or something to that effect. Another question that had been previously submitted came in, and I know we're right up against time, but about finding the balance between content and the message. And for me, again, it goes back to less is more. Not if I have a lot to say, I tend to break that up into 5 or 6 slides so that I can keep as little text, very short bullets, 2 or 3 words at a time, no more than 3 bullets per slide. I would rather go through 3 or 4 slides as I talk, as opposed to trying to fit a whole bunch of content onto a slide and have everybody looking at the slide instead of looking at me. So I think that's important.
Mark, I hate to interrupt, but you have gone past your 30 minutes.
Yes.
And I also know that you have an important call to make this evening. So there are a bunch of questions, and what I would like to ask is, those of you who have questions, please put them into the chat, and I will gather them together and forward them to Mark and see if we can get some responses. But as is always the case, whenever Mark presents this stuff, it seems like it goes past at a lightning speed. I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't think that it was 30 minutes that we had been watching. And I know that he was speaking incredibly quickly in order to get everything in. So there's so much stuff to look for. And I'd like to thank you so much for being our guest speaker this evening, because it has definitely been an enlightening. I have learned something from this every time you present. I learned something new. And it ticks me off because I wish I'd learned it ahead of time. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's the way I feel. So
Thank you,
please
Stan. Thank you, everyone.
feel free to give Mark a hand. You can unmute if you like to do that. And then let us get into the next stage of our meeting.